Hello, welcome back. I'm Shimelle and today I am scrapbooking again with my August Best of Both Worlds kit, and today I'm taking some inspiration from the summer issue of Scrapbook and Cards Today on page 31. So this is from the sketch column, and there is this sketch right here which Victoria Calvin has done, and I love her interpretation. And hers is on an 8.5 by 11. The original sketch is on an 8.5 by 11. I'm going to take it to 12 by 12, but I'm not going to put anything at the very sides. So if you wanted to put it on 8.5 by 11 just like this, you totally could. And I'm going to add some different elements in here, but I'm going to start with this same grid of photos and small paper pieces. So let's have a look at what I've got from the kit. Now, there's this cut apart of 2x2s from Simple Stories that I've been using throughout, but I've been using maybe 2 or 3 at a time on a layout. And I cut a whole bunch of them up to give me this grid with the same photo placement, like the same number of photos to paper pieces. Yeah, paper squares versus photo squares as in the sketch. So a grid of 9 with 4 photos. And my photos, because I wanted to print them all on one 4x6, they're ever so slightly smaller. So this, my printer setting was 1.8 inch squares. So then I just used one of these as a template to cut the others. And if I show you in contrast, you can see how much I cut off, only a tiny little bit. Okay, now that makes this grid, which is great. I don't have paper left to do this in-between bit that's on the sketch, and I want to include a 4x6 photo that's not on the sketch. So then it's time to walk away from the sketch and find a way that I can adapt that. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I have looked at it with the grid at the bottom and the photo on the top. I have looked at it with the grid at the top and the photo at the bottom. I didn't like either of those. But here's what I do like. 2/3 of the grid at the bottom. 1/3 of the grid at the top. Photo and title in the middle. And that makes me much happier. So this is where everything is going to go. And this space in here is going to become my title. And my journaling is going to go here and here in 2 vertical lines. Right, time to glue all this down. And I could put some of these up on pop dots, or I could just go with everything stuck flat. And I'm going to see here, can I make it so they all fit? No. Okay, so that means if I place the top row, and then I will center the photo, the big photo, between those 2 outer blocks. Because these 3 together are slightly wider than that, right? So then I just want the same amount here and here. And then preferably that same margin in the middle there too. Then down to here. If you're not good at eyeballing spacing, you can use a ruler to get these 2 pieces here in line with that piece there. Or you can just eyeball it. Stick all of these down. And these wouldn't need to be a 2x2 cut apart. It's just one option. And Victoria's version in the magazine uses 2x2s of pattern paper and then dresses them up with stickers and embellishments over the top, which is super cute as well. But I was able to find enough on that sheet to make this work. And forgive me the fact that I am going back to 2017 with these photos, because this one, it happens elsewhere in the collection, like in die cuts and stickers, but in this pattern paper, it's only on this one, is in a font to mimic the Friends credits from the TV show. And so I had to go back and get some photos from when we went to Friends Fest. So this is me at Central Park, and then these are the different photo ops that we did as a group. And so I have scrapped a few photos of this already, but never too many. It's fine. Right, now this title. I wanted to share with you today some ideas on how you can make a cut title without a machine to cut it out for you. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a trick that we used to use way back in the days before we had machines. And it used to be a very popular product called a lettering template, which was just a stencil that had a particular font, and you would trace it onto the paper you wanted to cut it out, and you would cut it out with scissors and build your title that way. But it became very expensive if you wanted more than one font. So either you would have the same couple fonts on all of your pages in this style, or you could spend a lot of money and collect all of the different templates, or you started to use your computer to help with different fonts. So I have found a font that I could use that looks just like the font from Friends, and if you Google free font Friends credits, you will find it as well. And I've printed it out in reverse. I'm going to cut it from this, which is a nice match to that color, by, first of all, this is just typing paper, nothing fancy about how this is printed off, because this has nothing to do with what will go on the finished layout. Okay. I want to trim it down a bit so that I can make the best use out of my pattern paper. So I can get rid of all that spacing in between. There we go. So because it's in reverse, I'm going to put it on the back of my pattern paper. So stick that down like that. Cut down so I've got a smaller space. Oh, that one actually will fit right up there. So I can use different little pieces. Okay, and then with either a craft knife or your scissors, you just use this as your template to cut out the letters. No machine required. Now, what about those cut files, like the one I used the other day for this summer cut file title, that have an outline and then you can back the empty space in the middle? Well, you need an outline font. Simple as that. So if you search for outline fonts, and then what I would suggest is you start, if you've never done this before, if you're not really used to detail cutting, then I would suggest starting with something like this. It's not an outline and has a fair amount of weight to each letter. If, however, you are already a dab hand at detail cutting, either with scissors or with the craft knife, then download an outline font and you can do it that way. And so you would just do the same thing, except you'd then have the next bit to cut as well, and then you could piece them behind. So it can be done, different fonts, different styles. And the more patience you have, the more detail you can cut. A few little tips on hand cutting, scissor cutting details. One is that it's not about whether your scissors are big or small. It is about what pair of scissors feel like an extension of your hand. What scissors give you the most control? So you will see some detail cutters only use teeny, teeny, tiny little snips. And if that's what works for you, then embrace that and go for it. And you can get teeny, teeny, tiny snips in very sharp blades, which can really help. But I use long blades because it's what I have more control over. And with small blades, I tend to get more little jags from cutting, having to rearrange my scissors, having to keep going forward. Whereas with the long blade, I can make one cut go along a long passage. Now, if I have a space like this where I need to cut out the middle without cutting through one of those pieces, then I tend to gently bend it in half and make a snip in the middle. Then put the tip of the scissors in to cut that original spot into a more workable size. So it's going to be ugly before it gets better, okay? Because you need room to be able to maneuver your scissors. Okay, and then I will go toward a corner once I'm able to move the blades. If there can be a corner. If it's an O, obviously, then the whole thing would be round. But something like this, I have one straight edge there, and the rest is a curve. So I'll do the straight edge first, and then follow around. Okay, and then when you're pulling a piece off, if it's kind of there by just a tiny tag, do try to go and cut all the way through. And when you are pulling the paper, pull toward you because you're working on the back of the paper. Pull toward you, which means you're pulling back to the back, not to the front of the letter, which could leave you with a tear that's visible. You bring it to the back, and then I peel this off. There we go. And that one goes there, which means I just have the S here. And I will show you what I mean by using the long blade. So I start right up here at the start, and I can get all the way to a corner before I have to move my scissors. Now my scissors stay put, and I move the paper. And I try to work with the side that's going to give me the least resistance. So I do this, and then instead of trying to turn that tiny corner, I free up this side of it first, then do the tiny corner. Because if both sides are free, the paper will bend a little bit more, just be more forgiving. Come back and catch this edge here, and take it as long as I can. So I'm restarting back here, basically when I'm turning, or if I have to. There we go. Again, do both sides here. And sometimes, this bit doesn't matter because that's going in the scraps, so I'll cut right through that. Peel that off. Then I only have this little bit left to work on. Anytime you have extra paper, it kind of makes paper gymnastics, so if I can take little pieces off at a time, then I do. Just work at those little pieces until everything comes free without a tear. And then peel the background off. And because I'm cutting through 2 layers of paper, even though the printer paper is nice and thin, sometimes you will get pieces that haven't cut quite as smoothly as you'd like, just because you're going through 2 pieces of paper is a little clunky sometimes. So I might come through here and just round that off. And now I have my title, which I can get centered in here. Now this is just one way to do a cut title without having a cutting machine. I'm going to be showing some other methods soon, but I would also point you in the direction of a scrapbooker called Kirsty Smith, and I have linked her post in the description box below. She regularly hand cuts titles from her handwriting, and she recently did a post where she shared a lot of tips on how she does that. So quality content there, and you should totally check it out. Now I want this to be spread out enough that I can put dots in between, just like in the show. So I'm going to use my enamel dots for that. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I need 6 in the same size, and I can do that with that middle color there in the middle size. Okay, so let's go from the middle, I think. Stick 1 letter down. Now, where I've cut it from a text, I can then line up all the letters by getting the text in the right line. So that's kind of helpful. work my way out by spacing these. See, I started to go like that, but the text helps me straighten it out. So there we go. It's that way. Again, if you have trouble eyeballing stuff like this, just use a ruler. No problem. Back over to this side. Last dot. Last letter. Then I'm going to finish this title by just adding the word fest at the end. And I'm going to fit that right over here in a really narrow font. Just like that. Okay. Time for my journaling to go in and then final embellishments. Journaling's in place there, so just last little embellishments. I'm going to bring in a few stickers. This one up to the top. So this is from the Amy Tangerine sticker sheet. It's going to go right at the top there. And then there's the same sort of design on a semicircle, which is going to come down here. I'd like to use this camera as well. So I think that one go right there. And in the middle of this, I want to bring that turquoise into the layout a little bit more because it's just in that one single spot. So I'm going to use this little asterisk and put it up here in the middle of that circle, just to have that color have a little match somewhere. And then I really liked the idea of using this one that says Loft in a holographic font because we definitely did Loft basically the entire day. So maybe that goes in the middle here between those two pieces. I think I'm pretty much done, but I have an idea for you. Yeah. Okay, so I have just stuck with the pattern paper in these boxes here. I haven't added pattern paper to anything else other than that and the title, of course. But I think if you are somebody who really loves a pattern, and not necessarily the white cardstock background, I think this page design in that sketch from the magazine can be really versatile with columns of pattern paper. So you could mat this photo with paper, pattern paper. You could cut this into a column of pattern paper, perhaps then with a border of a second pattern paper there. This wouldn't need to be white. Or you could take strips of a pattern paper and just do the outside here. It could even be 2 branding strips. But there are lots of ways to bring more pattern in if that's a little too stark for your liking. But for those of you who find that a lot of my pages have too much pattern for your liking, then this one is a little pared back. So there's a bit of balance for everything, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, that sort of thing. I'd also love if you came over and checked out my Instagram page. So that I'm on Instagram, I'm just at Shimelle, so I'm really easy to find, and I'd love to see you there if you're not already. Say hello. Right, have a wonderful and creative day, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, bye-bye.